my original idea for PWF Empire Live was to use this as a platform for fans to express their creativity when it comes to professional wrestling. And Steven has taken me up on that task many times, and he's going to take me up on that task once again because he saw the movie Creed and he saw a lot of parallels between that and professional wrestling. So we're going to explore those right now. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Steven and go ahead and take it away. And before I do, though, you don't have to have seen the movie to participate in this discussion or know what's going on, do you?
I don't think so. Right. So
Okay.
when I saw this movie, I came out thinking, "Wow, Sylvester Stallone just built a better top babyface in 2 hours than WWE did in 2 years in Roman Reigns." Because they had the same task that WWE is in right now: is they got to establish a new star. Because Sylvester Stallone is old now; he can't be the star anymore. He can't box. He can't pretend to box, and even if he did, it would be unbelievable. It would be stupid. You could get away with that in wrestling, where you have the Undertaker at 50 and 60 wrestling, but you can't really do it in a realistic boxing franchise like Rocky. So, if they want to continue the series, which they do, it seems, because it's a very lucrative series and it's a very successful series that continues to pump out decent movies, even the less quality ones are still pretty good. They're tasked with the same thing that WWE is when John Cena is on his way out as the top babyface, which is to establish a new top star. And so they chose to go with the son of Apollo Creed, who is Adonis Creed, who is sort of he becomes Rocky's new protege. And the parallel to that, of course, is Roman Reigns. And now what I noticed here is that by the end of the movie, you felt like Adonis Creed had gained what he earned. So he doesn't climb up a ladder. He sort of shoots directly to the top, not out of some BS. Just sort of it makes sense the way he does it because it's sort of parallel to the original Rocky series where there's sort of a gimmick where the world champion is going to take on a newcomer, and in this case, they find out that this is Apollo Creed's son, so they're interested in having him face the world champion, who sees this as a big money match because it's the name value of the Creed name, but it's also an easy match. The top heel, if you want to call him that, thinks he could just steamroll this guy. So he gets to the top in a way that makes sense, and he has a proper motivation. You know who this guy is. He's not a big, strong guy. He doesn't have an inconsistent sort of character. He's a guy who grew up without a father. He has a lot of repressed anger. He has a lot of violence in him from the atmosphere that he grew up in, and he's living on the legacy of his father, who he never met, who was a world famous boxer. And he wants to go into boxing, but he doesn't want to use the name of Creed to launch his career because he's afraid that if he doesn't succeed, then he's gonna disappoint everyone. And so you have a clear motivation. You know who this guy is. There's a romance subplot, which I thought was kind of unnecessary, but it was also in the original Rocky, so I'm not gonna bash on that too hard. So you know who this guy is. And the parallel would be, I still really don't know who Roman Reigns is. I don't know what his motivation is. I got a glimpse of it when he went up against Brock Lesnar, when Paul Heyman sort of brought up his legacy. And there's another parallel there where Reigns has a legacy to fill too. It's not like his father was the best ever, but he has relatives in the business who have accomplished great things, especially The Rock. So he has a similar dilemma. He has to live up to this legacy that he can't possibly fulfill from all the hype that one would place in someone with his name. And the thing that struck me is when this guy, Creed, this is the spoiler part, so if you really care, you should skip this part. When he gets to the end, he doesn't win. He takes him to the limit, but he still loses. And I thought that's how you get a top babyface over, is you make him look strong, but you don't make the audience insulted by saying this guy, who is a relative newbie, can just take on the world champion and win.
The way that you're laying that out there right now, I'm wondering where you think WWE went wrong in capturing that same magic that you saw in Creed, to where this guy, he attempted to go for the Holy Grail and he ended up failing because I guess that same kind of story was told with Roman Reigns leading into WrestleMania this year, because he went after the champion and Brock Lesnar, he did not get it. So my question to you would be, where do you think they went wrong in that process? Like, what didn't they do to signify like, okay, this guy is made right now?
they didn't respect the fans. Basically, they pushed this guy too hard, and they did it at the worst time in the worst way when Daniel Bryan was around. They didn't respect the fans' integrity, and one crucial difference is that Roman Reigns didn't lose to Brock Lesnar clean. He got sideswiped by Seth Rollins, so this wasn't a fair fight between Brock and Reigns where he loses. And this is what I originally wanted, because I was thinking of the Rocky movies when I saw this fight between Reigns and Lesnar, and I was thinking if they really want to get Reigns over, they have to make him look strong but still lose, because that's a respectable loss. And then next year you can have him win, just like Rocky does in the original movies, and just like I'm assuming is going to happen with Creed, because it's sort of a parallel there. And also, another thing is I'm pretty sure they planned to have Reigns win, which is something we all knew. We knew that Reigns was going to beat Lesnar, and the only reason he didn't was a combination of things. One was that Reigns was getting booed to hell, and they had to do some damage control. And second, Lesnar just re-signed a contract, so you kind of had to capitalize on that momentum. So we all knew Reigns was going to win. He didn't win, but he lost in a way that's sort of cheap. It didn't feel like he lost in any way that had integrity. He lost because he got cheated by an unrelated guy who was Seth Rollins. So that's a major difference, I think. Second is they never defined who Reigns was. They spent a good deal of this movie telling you who Adonis Creed is, and they do it in a way that he's not overshadowed by either Rocky or his father. The movie's about him. It's not about Rocky, even though Rocky is a major part of it. But when you have Reigns, you just feel like you're kind of watching... You're not watching the development of a character. You're watching creative say, okay, we got to get this guy over, so let's make him the next John Cena almost. Like that's how it looked to everyone when Reigns was climbing to the top. And that's why everyone reacted to it so poorly. So I think that was the major difference. It was artificial. It didn't respect the fans, and it didn't take any time. They didn't take any time to show the audience who Reigns is, why you should care about him, and they didn't give him any consistent character. So that's what I think went wrong.
In your creative mind, have they missed the boat on attempting to do that with Roman Reigns, or could it be done now? And if it could,
I think
what next step do they take?
They could still recover him in a different way, which is what they're doing, but they missed the boat to make him truly great. Like, this is just like a damage control, make him passable as a top heel, as a top face, because look, he's fighting the League of Nations. If he was a great top face, he'd be fighting Brock Lesnar, which he probably still will, but he wouldn't be up against these chumps. He'd be up against a heel who is a top heel. He'd probably be up against Dean Ambrose, and I'm pretty sure the only reason why Dean Ambrose didn't turn heel was because they knew if they did that, Reigns would be shit out of luck, because he would just be cheering Ambrose over him. So, yeah, they missed the boat in that regard. They're doing damage control, and they might succeed. I think they will succeed, but it's not like they can go back and have him almost get there in a way that has integrity, because he already lost to all these people, and he's already suffered all these losses. And we're in the stage now where he's the champion, and the time for making him look respectable but fail is over now, because they missed that boat. Now they just got to make him look full-on strong, which is what they're doing.
And I think that has something to do with why we saw him ultimately beat Sheamus a couple of weeks ago. I saw multiple people say it, and I felt the same way. Like, he's failed enough already. Like, this is it. He has to win here. Yeah. Like, he's already failed enough times.
There's a time for failure, and they gave him too much failure in the wrong way. Like,
exactly.
He never failed with any integrity. He just failed because people just screwed him out of things. You never felt like Reigns was good, but he wasn't great yet, because that's a respectable thing when you're climbing up the ladder. It's respectable to lose to the champion if you're not the champion. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And
it's like that Jeff Hardy Undertaker moment when Hardy gives him a great fight and he shows him respect after from years ago. Like, that was one of those moments where it was like, Jeff, we saw some of the greatness of Jeff Hardy, but he was good, but not that good yet, It was that type of thing.
It gives him room to grow. And the same thing with Rocky and the same thing with Creed is they both had the same sort of finish in their first fight against the champion, which is they take him to the limit, but they don't win. And that gives you room, because next time you want to see him win. And Rocky does win the second time, and I don't know who Creed's going to fight in the second movie when they make one. I don't think it's going to be the same dude. But I'm sure he's going to win the world title in the next movie, just because there's a thing with these Rocky movies that makes you realize, well, it's not hard to book a fighting show, because people don't necessarily need surprises. They just need they need to be respected, and it needs to make sense, because we all know how it's going to go. We know that in the next movie, Creed's going to win. And I don't think anyone cares, because it's going to be nice. It's going to feel earned. It's going to feel good. But when it comes to WWE, it's like you need all these twists, you need all these turns, and it's actually a very simple formula. And the Rocky's been doing it for every movie. It's been successful every time.
Just going back to that phrase that you used, failing with integrity. Man, that was like an aha moment. You know, those Oprah aha moments for me. That's a very loaded phrase there, and I completely understand where you're coming from. And like I'm picking up on so many different themes here, because talking about how you know that he's going to win in the next movie and things like that, that just goes to show that when people talk about, oh, this is predictable, that is predictable, that really doesn't matter. It's all about the journey that you go on. And yeah, and you being able, like someone being able to pull you in and have you be invested in the story that is being told. And I think one of the reasons why WWE doesn't really do that these days is because they're fighting their natural inclination to be seen as, like, they're fighting their natural inclinations for matches to be seen as fights. And that's something that needs to happen more often. And I think WWE is in a stage right now where they need to start borrowing from these different elements, because there are so many things that exist today that have borrowed from professional wrestling, like UFC and things like that. Like, I think WWE is at a point right now where they need to start borrowing elements on ways to, you know, tell fight stories from UFC, from stuff like Creed and Rocky and things like that, because these are universal themes that all you have to do is put your own little special twist on it and kind of like bring it into the world of wrestling and make it work for you. But it's not impossible. Like, all you have to do is stop fighting the inclination to make these things fights. And sometimes, you know, realize, hey, people fail, and that's it. WWE, they do this thing where they book themselves into corners, and they try to find a million different ways of how we can lessen the impact of what's happening. But sometimes you need that impact. Sometimes somebody fails, and they have to be mired, like they have to be surrounded in that failure. Like, that's a story there.
Yeah,
and it's okay to tell that story sometimes.
Success and failure, because if you fail at beating the world champion, but you're in a fight with the world champion, that's not a failure. That's actually success. It's a failure relative to the world champion, because he's still better than you, but it's still a huge success. And the thing with Rocky is it doesn't insult you. And this is something that I felt when I watched Rocky for the first time like 2 years ago, which I'm late to the boat, but you're even later, so there's nothing you can say about that.
Hey, you haven't watched The Wire yet. You don't.
Yeah, but Rocky is more timeless than The Wire, according to people. I don't know. The Wire's probably better, just because I've heard that's amazing. But anyway, when I first watched Rocky, I remember thinking, this guy's going to beat Apollo Creed. It's going to be kind of dumb, because this is like his first professional fight. He's up against the world champion. He's a nobody. And he actually doesn't win. I'm like, wow, I was actually surprised by that. Like, he doesn't beat the champion. And I respected that so much. And I respected it again when it happened in Creed, even though it was kind of obvious. But, like, with WWE, he would have just won. Like, that just would have been it. Like, if you commit to being, this is your guy, of course he's going to beat the champion. Like, why wouldn't he?
Why earlier, when I was saying that Roman Reigns' progress gets impeded by the lack of good enemies that he has to face, holds so much weight. Because if he does have good enemies, if he does have good adversaries to have faced along the way, like a Brock Lesnar, who he did face, and that match at WrestleMania was awesome. And Seth Rollins' cash-in was awesome too, but actually it did hurt Roman Reigns because of the fact that he ended up being the odd man out here. Seth Rollins wins the belt in an awesome way, but the match that Reigns and Lesnar had was actually really good, and it actually had kind of a Rocky type of story. But Seth Rollins' cash-in, I can't lie. I can't say that wasn't an awesome moment, and I didn't love it. I did. But, like, when you look back long term, you do have to say, like, man, that was actually more of a roadblock for Roman Reigns than anything else overall, without any of us really looking at it that way at the time, because it was a cool moment. But see, that's how, again, they can give you the flash and dance, and you can just say, oh, that's cool, and you don't even realize at that moment that that's actually detrimental. So not every big good impact moment is always good either. So there's like two sides to that argument of, like, the impact. Those things can be so beneficial and they can also be detrimental in another way long term. So it's like that's why every decision that they make needs to be carefully, looked at and actually planned out long term, rather than just knee jerk reactions and quick little things that they just throw out there at you, and then they don't really think about what they want to do 2, 3 months, 6 months down the road. But I mean, I think Roman Reigns is recovering now. Like, this is his recovery. Actually, him winning the title is basically the beginning of his recovery. Him winning over Triple H and having a good reign with it will be what truly gets him to that next level. But like, it's funny how all these months later he's he's really still feeling those effects of all those losses that really the continued failure that actually didn't do much for him, but basically push him in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say, going off of what you said that he needs good antagonists. That's another thing that these movies always do right. Even though the Rocky movies, one of their flaws is that they never hype up the villain really. They usually don't have any spotlight on the enemy fighter at all. They maybe show 1 or 2 scenes and then there's a fight. But still, the fighter who he's fighting is always presented, booked, I would say, almost, because it's a wrestling show. That's what Rocky is. They're booked really strong. Like, the guy who Creed goes up against looks like a beast, and he's not a joke. He's not Sheamus. He's not a jobber, right? You feel like when Creed takes this guy to the limit, he's actually accomplished something. It's not like he just squashed some nobody who happened to have the belts. Like, you really felt like he was fighting the world champion, like the best of the best at the time. So that's another thing that really helps.
All right, this is a very interesting conversation to have. Just like the different types of inspirations that you can find in different themes and parallels between wrestling and other things that exist in pop culture. So if you haven't seen Creed yet, I highly suggest you guys go check that movie out. It's really awesome. And we're going to be doing something similar that we just did with this Creed in relation to wrestling next week with Star Wars The Force Awakens. I think all of us have seen that movie. A lot of people out there, you have seen that too. And we're going to attempt to do the same thing with that one next week.